Jiro here for Ember Games with a review of Scarlet Nexus, available on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series S and X, and PC. Played on PlayStation 5 for the review. The game was released on consoles and PC June 25th, 2021, and was developed by Bandai Namco. I've played around with a couple of Bandai Namco's Tales series, but I'll be honest, I've never stuck one out. I really want to like them, but I struggle. Scarlet Nexus caught my eye, I'd seen some decent reviews on it, and it looked kinda unique. So I thought I'd give it a try and maybe use it as a re-entry to try the Tales series again, namely Tales of Arise, also released in 2021. Scarlet Nexus is a science fiction action RPG set in a world where there are a couple of major cities left, albeit very nice looking cities, where nearly all humans are born with a power. Those whose powers can be weaponized are recruited as children to join the OSF, an elite force that battles the mutated others that constantly invade the various regions. You play as either Kasane, using her psychokinesis to control multiple floating knives, or Yuito, using his more close combat sword. Your party members vary across the game's chapters, but they fill in additional combat skills with things like electrokinesis, teleportation, and invisibility. The combat system gets pretty dense, with usually multiple options to take out specific enemy types. You have a basic combo with multiple pushes of the square button. If you add triangle, you can do a backstep in the combo. Using the game's extensive skill tree, you can also add additional hits with both buttons. You have an air juggle and some combo opportunities while airborne as well. Both playable characters have psychokinesis as their power, allowing you to press the R2 button to launch nearby objects into enemies, with some environments having L2 objects that have additional timed inputs to do more and bigger hits. Most enemies have weak points, hitting them from certain angles, behind their shield for example, so positioning is important. One advantage the OSF soldiers have is the ability to link their brains through what's known as SAS, which lets them lend people their powers. You have two party members physically with you on the battlefield, with a handful of AI options regarding their aggressiveness. If you have additional party members, they'll show up as reserve, but you can use their linked powers. Using the R1 and a face button, you can activate your party members' abilities, which slowly drains the gauge. If you use someone's pyrokinesis, for example, it will add fire to your melee hits. If you hit an enemy with that enough, it will inflict burn status. Same with shock. One member has invisibility, allowing you to disappear from your enemy's view so you can sneak up behind them for a critical hit. In addition to sharing powers, you eventually gain the ability to hit L1 and a face button for teammates, summoning them into the fray to deal a single attack. While you're performing successful hits, you'll see a squiggly line at the bottom fill up. This is called the brain drive. When it fills up enough, you'll get some boosted stats and speed while it runs out. You'll open up another form of attack pushing on both sticks, creating a brain field to go crazy with some psychokinesis attacks. Just make sure you get out of that before the bar depletes. Enemies have a yellow crush bar, and if you damage that enough to deplete it, you can do L2 move, which will do massive damage to big enemies and usually kill regular-sized ones. There's also a dodge mechanic with a perfect dodge and counter attack, including fleeing projectiles back to their origin when executed correctly. By default, targeting will auto-lock to an enemy you fling something at before battle starts, and targets can be switched between with R1 and a flick of the stick. So as you can see, there's a lot going on here. The game's main events take place in a handful of areas, selectable as they open with fast travel via the world map. Maps are full of others that sometimes let you pass, and other times will set up a gate forcing you to defeat them to proceed. The level design actually sorta reminded me a bit of Final Fantasy XIII in layout, pretty bi-directional in regards to their complexity. You'll have tiny offshoots sometimes where you can find an item, but for the most part it's just a straight shot. When you have an objective for the main quest in an area, when you hit the map to quick travel it'll highlight the region it's in, and when you're actually on that map you'll see a red diamond go on your minimap, and most of the time you just reach that goal and a cutscene will begin. There's an archivist dressed in yellow that serves as your save point in your shop, and you can usually find them several times in each map. Here you can buy weapons and items, or exchange enemy drops and environmental resources for those same items, as well as presents and some special weapons. Those environmental resources are found as shiny spots on the ground, and they'll appear as yellow arrow icons on your minimap. They regenerate after you leave, so you can go back and gather them as needed. In addition to equipping weapons, OSF members have plug-in slots. Each character starts with one unlocked, with a maximum of 3. Increased on your playable character via skill tree and by other party members giving them specific gifts. Plugins for these slots come in varying power levels of attack power, defense, and hit point increases, as well as status guards and a few other options. There are also some visual additions to each character you can equip, but that's pretty much it for gear. The game is divided into chapters, and before each chapter begins you'll have a standby phase, where the platoon all returns to the hideout and you can spend time talking to them, doing bond episodes as available, and giving them gifts. Bond episodes can be cutscenes or small missions you take on with another party member, and when complete, increases your relationship up to level 6. Each step of that relationship increases what the character does for you in combat, taking a hit for you or increasing their accessible power, so it's worth the effort, if not necessary, to work on those. Gifts are created specific to characters, and you can see when you're exchanging goods for them in the archivist shop who wants them, and if you've given it to them before. These also perform incremental relationship increases with party members. Now, I don't have exact stats on the playthrough, but in doing the game's cutscenes told via still panels, and all of the Bond episodes, I'd guess about 50% of my 22 hours was spent in cutscenes and conversations. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all about getting to know characters and building relationships and all that, but cramming all that into these standby phases, getting to know these predictable, one-dimensional anime-troped characters over long cutscenes can get a bit monotonous. You can accept side quests from citizens in the city areas, and they usually involve killing X number of others with Y power or turning in some items. The quests are turned in via the menu. 1 or 2 gave me small weapon upgrades, while the rest seemed to provide consumables I could easily and affordably buy in the shop as rewards. It was a little repetitive, retreading the same maps over and over for each piece of the game's content too, and that other 50% that wasn't cutscenes. In addition to the main and Bond episode missions, if you get a side quest and want to knock it out, you look up the specific enemy location, fast travel to the area, and fight once again to that location to get your kill counts. If I recall, it's about 5 different locations with a few maps each for questing. One that I think was used about 5 times in main missions. The final dungeon that took over an hour to complete was pretty much just a palette swap of pieces of those maps put together too. The game's plot had some interesting moments, finding out where the others were coming from, and some time travel theories and events that worked together to some complexity. Until the ending, where in the epilogue, one of the characters even commented that, quote, it would be a waste of time trying to figure out what happened, and that it was just a miracle, adding she hates saying something so illogical. You can save your clear data when complete and start the game again in EX mode, basically New Game Plus, carrying over your stats and levels, and you can also play the other playable character. I played as Kasane, as you can see in the video, and yeah, sure, some things happened in the opening hours, but Yuito was a party member for a good majority of the game too. Sorry if that's a spoiler. So I'm guessing the main things that change are the endless hours of Bond episodes between Yuito and the platoon versus Kasane. A good deal of trophies for the game were completing Bond episode level 5 with one character and level 4 with the other character on a specific person to get a single trophy, so obviously the developers just wanted some emphasis on that. Overall, Scarlet Nexus has a pretty great and diverse combat system, an interesting skill tree, good set of powers, lots of cutscenes and Bond episodes with some fairly troped anime characters, some beautiful areas with a lot of forced retread and corridor level design, bland side quests with some lacking rewards, a story that brings some fun conflict and interesting turns that ultimately has a disappointing, universe rule-breaking conclusion. Rated as an action role-playing game, Scarlet Nexus ended up at a 55 on my true 0 to 100 scale, where 50 is an average game. This is Jiro from Umber Games. Thanks for watching.